G'day guys, it's Chris. I hope you're all well and Happy New Year. So, Seiko versus Orient. Which company makes the best budget sports watch? We're going to kick off the new year and we're going to do a pretty big comparison between these two. And if you remember back a few months, you may recall this video that I made about the Orient Kamasu. And a few times throughout the video, I mentioned the value proposition of that watch versus what Seiko are currently producing. Well, today, as a follow-up, we are going to directly compare two watches from either brand, priced at around $300, and we will work out what brand makes the best value sports watch. But first of all, some of you may be wondering, what is Orient? Who is Orient? And some of you just may be wondering, aren't these two companies the same because Seiko own both? As a broad statement, that definitely holds true. However, it's not as straightforward as that. Let me explain. Seiko is arguably one of the world's biggest watch brands. They create a massive range of watches, from entry-level sports pieces through to high-end complications. Their capabilities and influence overall in the watch industry is massive. They are best known for delivering some incredible value for money pieces and watches that just work. However, in recent years, we have seen the brand shifting its strategy and moving its core lines into a higher price bracket. They are doing this while offering less value for money than what we've come to expect from the brand. This change has allowed for companies like Orient to step into the spotlight and really gain some traction in the budget categories over recent years. Orient is actually a sub-company of the Seiko Group, not the Seiko Watch Corporation. What exactly does this mean? Well, it means that they are actually different companies and they operate independently. Sitting under the Seiko Group are three companies. The first is the Seiko Holdings Corporation. This is where the Seiko Watch Corporation operates, and it's a part of a number of other companies in this group, such as the Seiko Clock Corporation, the Sports Life Corporation, the Service Center Corporation. This is where repairs and service of watches take place, Seiko Precision, plus quite a few others. The second of these three groups is Seiko Instruments. This group consists more of what I think is leading edge technology businesses, including Seiko Instruments Mobile Communications, Seiko Instruments Micro Precision, Infotech, Techno Research, plus a number of other businesses. The third group that sits under the Seiko Group is Seiko Epson. This group also consists of a heap of different companies, including Seiko Epson Contact Lens Corporation, the Lens Service Center, Imaging Devices Corporation, and that's just to name a few. However, it's in this group that we also see the Orient Watch Company reside. While the Seiko Watch Corporation and Orient Watches may reside under the overarching Seiko Group, I think that when we consider the sheer size of that group and the companies under it, it's easy to understand how it's possible for these two brands to function independent of one another. With all that being said, I do think that there are some synergies or shared synergies between the two, which makes sense. They're businesses, and I'm going to highlight those aspects today. We're going to compare this relatively new release from Seiko up against the Orient Kamasu, and we will work out which is the better watch all round. Let's get into it. So right off the bat, when we have these two side by side, both cases look pretty similar in size. The Orient measures in at 41.3mm by 13.2mm in height, while the Seiko measures in at 42.5mm by 13.4mm in height. Both cases feature an even portion of polished and brushed surfaces throughout. The brush surfaces are more visible to the eye when you're wearing either watch, and this just helps them maintain their sports watch vibe when on the wrist. The lug-to-lug dimension is not all that different between these two, and despite the Seiko being slightly larger, it's actually a little more compact, with the Seiko having a lug-to-lug of 46mm and the Orient having a lug-to-lug of 46.7mm. When we put these two watches side by side, the taller case of the Seiko is slightly more pronounced. However, I don't think it's until you strap these watches to the wrist that you really start to notice the differences. Firstly, the case band on the Orient is slimmer and the lugs taper slightly more aggressively towards the wrist. And while there is a very small difference between the two when side by side, on the wrist, I think that this aspect makes a big difference. The bezels also impact how each watch wears. Both feature aluminium inserts in their unidirectional bezels, and there's a nice level of grip that I would say is about identical between the two. The Seiko uses more of a box-shaped bezel with a nice matte green finish for its insert. The Orient, on the other hand, uses a much darker shade of green, and it tends to taper off from the sapphire crystal, where the Seiko's bezel rises above. While it's not as slick looking, it's more likely to protect the hardlex material from scratches and damage. The Seiko bezel is a design that's been used from the brand over the years, and it's well loved by many and looks unique. And I think that it has a big impact in making this watch appear a little more boxy or hockey puck-like on the wrist, which is fine. The Orient, on the other hand, feels and looks the more refined of the two. That being said, both feel nice and solid on the wrist, with matching brushed stainless steel bracelets securing them down. Both dials feature a fine matte green finish up close, yet they both look completely different. The shade of green used on the Seiko is more, well, green and true to colour all the time, where the shade of green used on the Orient shifts and changes colours frequently, with a hint of blue in there for good measure. The combination of this colour, the fine matte finish, and there's also a hint of a very subtle sunburst pattern, combines to provide for one of the most unique dials that I've seen, well, certainly from a colour perspective. The markers on the Seiko feature rose gold surrounds with a nice amount of lume within. The classic shaped Seiko hands feature a similar design with the gold borders and lume within. The lack of text on the Seiko dial is something that really stood out for me. You know, when companies are putting books of text on their dial, it's refreshing to see this approach. There's a little more text on the Orient dial, and I think that while neither are winning any prizes for their logos anytime soon, the Seiko is the cleaner of the two. The Orient date window has a little more attention to detail, with marker matching silver borders around it. The baton-shaped markers are well integrated, and they contrast nicely against the dark green backdrop. The silver shade used for the marker and hand surrounds give the watch a bit more of a refined look versus the Seiko. The design is key in this, I think, with the baton-style markers and sword-style hands giving this watch a rather timeless classic look. The marker and hand set actually reminds me of the old 2254.5 Omega, which isn't a bad thing, as that's arguably one of the best all-round Seamasters ever produced. The lume and legibility is good overall for both these watches. But if I'm going to pick one, I think the Seiko takes it, and it's not just because of the larger hands, it's because I think that the Orient is a little more flashy with its finishing, where the Seiko uses a matte finish almost exclusively, and it just helps to keep legibility on point all the time. Up close, both watches are really well finished. I was actually surprised. I think the Orient feels like the better finished watch. It feels tighter, and its finishing is cleaner up close. While the Seiko is no slouch and it's actually incredibly well finished itself, the Orient is just another level up in this respect. Inside, both watches technically feature in-house movements. The Seiko, with its 4R36 caliber, is visible under its see-through caseback. It features 22 jewels, a quick set date, can be manually wound, it features hacking, powers the day-date function, and it offers around 40 hours of power reserve. The F6922 caliber found in the Orient is not visible under its closed caseback. However, it covers all the same specifications, yet promises to deliver tighter accuracy than what Seiko claim. Accuracy on the Orient is spec'd at around plus 25 to minus 15 seconds a day, and the Seiko plus 45 to minus 35 seconds per day. Now, I don't need to tell you that that is a huge difference, and in reality, both are often a lot more accurate than the specifications that the manufacturer states. For example, on the Orient, I've seen a consistent average deviation of just over 6 seconds a day fast, and the Seiko, it's just over 10 seconds a day fast. Look, both of these watches are available in a range of different colors and orientations. I'm going to drop a link in the description of this video so you can check all those out. The watches you see here are going to run you around 300 US or about 450 Australian, and both can be had for less when they're on sale, so make sure you keep an eye out for some good deals. While both these watches are great, and I think a key decision in deciding between these two will simply come down to which looks better to you. If you are looking for the better watch all round, and one that truly offers some incredible value, you've got to go with the Orient. It's more refined in its finishing and overall design. The Seiko is definitely more chunky and tool watch looking, and if you are after that look, then that's the one to opt for. I also love the rose gold against the green. But if you are looking for something a little more versatile, a little cleaner, sharper, and better executed, the Orient wins out. And one thing that I forgot to mention was the Orient actually has a screw-down crown versus the push-pull on the Seiko. For a sports watch, this means a potential weak point on the Seiko and a reduced water resistance of 100 meters versus 200 on the Orient. Now, while not many of us dive to this depth, it's nice to know that you are covered and have plenty of redundancy as a comfort factor. For a watch priced around $250 to feature an in-house automatic movement with decent accuracy, that specs list, that really well finished dial, and from a color perspective, has one of the best green dials on the market regardless of price, I think that what's on offer here with the Orient is something the Seiko 5 just can't match. Anyway, guys, that's it from me. If you made it this far, thank you. And I actually have a little surprise in store for you. To celebrate and kick off the new year, I'm going to give away an Orient Ray 2 in either blue or black dial. You'll be able to choose what color you want. To enter, make sure that you're subscribed, be sure to drop a comment below, and let me know what watch you prefer in this comparison and why. Then hit the thumbs up on this video. I'll drop all the details in this video's description, and entries close on the 17th of January. Anyway, that's it from me. I wish you all a happy new year, and I'll see you soon.